Program. Catch polka varieties next Sunday at 2 on TV5. The following special was videotaped Friday for presentation at this time.
Somewhere there's music, how faint the tune. Somewhere there's heaven, how high the moon.
I love that song. Isn't that nice?
Oh, that's very nice. But you know what happens tonight, Fred? A new television station goes in there. They call it television. Why don't we listen to that and see what it's like?
Okay, I'll turn this off.
This is it. This is what they call television.
This is television station WEWS, your Scripps Howard station, first in Cleveland.
At this very moment, 8 o'clock, December 17th, 1947, the first television station in Ohio took the air. And the first program was the Cleveland Press Christmas Party. It came live to the viewers, just as we're coming to them live tonight from Stouffer's Inn on the Square.
Well, actually, Fred, if I would have been born, I would have been watching from my crib.
I was watching from, you know what? I was old enough to remember it, except I was in West Virginia. I was studying philosophy.
Were you?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, that's okay. You know, there was a wonderful party that was hosted on that first show. It was hosted by Jimmy Stewart. In fact, this is the brochure that went out in inviting everyone to watch television, something that was a newfangled idea, they said. In fact, why don't we take a look back? It was a very exciting time.
No longer in its infancy. Well, TV5 today is a happy, healthy 35-year-old. And TV5's progress over those years has been visible to everyone. Not like you, huh, Harvey? What's that, Harvey? Want me to shut up now and just watch the show? Oh, all right, Harvey.
You know, there were only a few shows. There wasn't a lot to look at in 1947, but those shows started to multiply. And what we ought to do is look back now at some of those old shows and some of the famous faces.
Hello, it's the start of the show. We're set to go.
Sit back with us and look through a special family album as we remember TV5, the first 35 years, with special guest appearances by Dick Clark, Ted Koppel, Merv Griffin, Marvin Hamlish, Phil Donahue, Phyllis Diller, and many more.
That's entertainment.
And here we are with Broadway babies singing for us there, and Mayor Voinovich has joined us.
Magically joined us. See how television has come along? Hello and welcome. Good to have you here. Do you remember watching television when you were a child?
Oh, yes, I remember it. I think the thing I remember most about WEWS was the test pattern.
You liked our lighthouse, huh?
It was always on too often.
Yes.
Not enough television.
You were always tuning your television to make sure you had that in correctly for yourself.
That's right. We want to make sure that it was just right.
What things do you remember most about it, as it was, apart from the test pattern? Do you remember the kiddie shows and the Bosco?
Honestly, the thing I really remember most is Captain Video.
Really? Was that your favorite show?
I think it was one that I watched every day, yes. Oh, yeah, that was the big thing. We'd all gather around and watch Captain Video.
Now, I don't want to ask your age, but people know it basically. But
I'm 46 years old.
So you were very, very young.
Oh, I was, very tender years.
Tender years, weren't we all? Yes.
Well, what do you think a television station is supposed to do for a community?
Well, I think basically to do a good job of letting people know what's going on in the community, and also, Fred, what you've tried to do, and that is boost the community, to be a promoter of the community rather than someone just sitting back and taking shots at the community. That's
right, and we do have a fine community here, indeed. It's nice to see so many people come downtown for an event such as this as well.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm very grateful to WEWS Channel 5 for the real boosting that they've done of the city of Cleveland during the last several years. I think that that's had a great deal to do with people thinking more about their town than they have in the past.
Actually, when you think about it, it's an easy town to promote. There are lots of good things happening here.
I think so.
You have something there in your lap.
Yes, I've got a proclamation here designating today as WEWS 35th Anniversary Day in the city of Cleveland. I'm really grateful for what you've done.
Well, thank you very much for taking time and being here with us.
And Mayor, you know we're going to hang that up.
Pardon me?
You know we're going to hang that one up.
I hope so.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mayor George Voinovich, thanks so much. Thank you very much indeed. And there it is. That's what it looks like.
There it is. Can you see that?
Glad to have it. Thanks so much.
Okay.
You know, in the old days, everything was live, just as this is live. Paul Hodges was one of our very, very early people. And he'd go out on 13th Street. That's where our station was in those early days. At 1:15, live in the afternoon. There was no tape. And he would interview folks on the street. And I'm told that people would actually go all the way down to 9th Street to avoid being on his show. And then he had another one, and it was called Dress and Guess. And he would put on his civvies, you know, like his shorts. And then he would put on clothes little by little, and somebody guessed what kind of a character he was. And then there was, of course, wrestling at the Armory.
Lots of memories.
Both now gone.
Lots of memories you're probably, that's right, bringing back to people who are saying, I remember that. You know, too, you might remember some of the children's shows that were on at that time, whether it be Gene Autry, maybe Hop Along Cassidy was your favorite. How about Howdy Doody or Kukla, Fran and Ollie? As a matter of fact, and later in the 50s, Kukla, Fran and Ollie would be one of the first shows to be broadcast in color. The interesting thing about that is that absolutely no one could see those shows in color. And a man whose name I know is going to sound familiar to you, John Cameron Swayze.
And
he was very famous then. And he is still ticking.
He's still around.
Why don't we take a look, if we can, right now at some of those early shows.
3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, 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 rock,
Really nice.
Unbelievable.
You know, when we went on the air then, too, believe it or not, you know, with inflation and everything, commercials cost just $5. No one would advertise. We were on the air, no sponsors, no viewers. Why do you think that happened?
I think they decided to do it because there was something about the spirit of adventure. The war was over. The economy was set for that big run-up that was to last until just fairly recently. President Truman was about to run for president on his own, and the age of technology was above us, just ready to roll. And there were very few televisions at that time, but the people who put this station on the air knew that the viewers would be there. Scripps Howard really got its start in the newspaper business way back in 1935. And they decided to branch out, and Jack Howard, who was the son of Roy Howard, decided to start radio in 35, and then in 1947, they started WEWS FM, and that came on the air just about a month before this television station did. And Earl Keyes was one of the staff announcers at that time. He's Mr. Jingling now. You've seen him 1,000 times. Court Stanton became our first staff announcer, and of course Dorothy Fuldheim. But television was just around the corner, and Scripps Howard took a chance, and WEWS went on the air in December of '47.
You know, when you think back, too, a lot of those shows that you mentioned, a lot of the ones that I mentioned, were really for children, weren't they?
Uncle Jake, Gene Carroll, and Captain Penny.
And don't forget this, I have two things from the past. You know what that is?
I didn't live in Cleveland in 1950.
You don't know what that is? That's the Bosco Bear. That's the Bosco Bear, and this is Captain Penny's cab.
Aha.
See that?
Captain
you know what Captain Penny always said, too, don't you? Do you know, maybe at home you can say it along with us in case you happen to know. Ready?
Ready?
You can fool some of the people all of the time, all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool Mom. Because she's pretty nice and she's pretty smart, and if you listen to her, you won't go far. Because she's pretty nice and she's pretty smart. And if you listen to her, you won't go far wrong. Did you get it right at home?
It was great. And a couple of other famous kids people. Well, certainly Jim Breslin was oftentimes on the air as one of our important personalities. And here's Jim right now.
Jim?
Well, we saw a fantastic amount of talent that went by, but I think right next to me now is top talent. The top talent, because these people here are at the top. They were here when we went on the air. Right next to me is Earl Keyes, who started with us. And Earl now is Mr. Jingling. But Earl, when you came over to our place, how did you start?
I started by putting WEWS on the air 1 month before the television station went on. I was a director of WEWS FM, which I don't suppose anybody ever remembers, but those initials became a great opening for a wonderful career. FM. We were upstairs, and you had to stumble over old piles of lumber and things to get to our control room, but we played records out there, and were we ever glad to get letters. Wow.
Well, now when you got into television, who was that fellow that used to be Mr. Nicholsworth with?
Well, that was Mr. Nicholsworth. I was Mr. Nicholsworth with Captain Penny. But I worked with Bob Dale, a wonderful, Pop. Yes, I was Pop then. I used to talk to him over the PA system because we didn't have time to plan the shows any other way. So we'd work them out as we went along, you know.
Yes.
Bob was one of the, I think, real, genuine talents in early television, and of course he's still at it, I think, out in San Diego.
And our other bit of talent is over here on the other side, Lynn.
Some bit.
My golly, Lynn was our first bit of real big talent, and Lynn and his wife Vivi put on the most fantastic show. Tell them about that.
Well, we had the Rogers Jewelry Show. It was the first sponsored program in Cleveland. Then I had Uncle Leslie, a children's show. I think, that's my dear wife and myself back there. That was before I dyed my hair gray. And
now it's just dyed.
And then we had Take 5. Remember that?
Oh,
he directed that with Frankie Straussick.
And there
we are.
Larry Adler.
Wow. That was a long time ago.
Paul Draper is the dancer over there. You were interviewing them.
I had one interview with a guy that just came from Russia, and he said, you tell me one word. Everybody tell me new word. I learn new word from everybody. And I said, I'll talk to you and teach you a new word just as soon as I get through talking to this doctor about menopause. And he said, menopause. I know menopause. 2 cities above Chicago.
Yeah, that's right. Len used to interview the people on the show.
Lip sync?
I did. I did invent lip sync.
That was a great.
You were the one that gave me a wind up when I was doing the lip sync.
Well, we just got one here coming up, Len, and now
Jim, what are you
this is the top talent that we had here, and now Fred's going to show us some more. Back to you, Fred.
What we're going to show you right now are a couple of the top executives. 2 of the general managers of our competitive stations in this television market are here with us tonight. Both alums of our television station, my dear friend Betty Cope. We worked together way back in 1966. Betty Cope was the general manager and president of Channel 25, and there's old buddy Jack Moffat, general manager of Channel 43.
Thank you. Yes. Good to be back. A lot of pleasant memories over the last 35 years.
Wonderful memories.
Betty, tell us, I got to ask you to tell about the horse riding to work that day in that 1950 snowstorm.
Snowstorm hit on Thanksgiving night. And at that point, I was directing my first show, which was a Santa Claus show. And I happened to be married to the guy who was Santa Claus at the time. The snowstorm hits. I am living at Shaker Square. We had one engineer in a transmitter building who slept in overnight because he couldn't get out. Nobody could get into the station. I'm living at Shaker Square. I'm thinking, how do you possibly get downtown? How do you tell the kids Santa Claus isn't going to make it in a snowstorm? So we got horses from the Riding Academy and rode downtown and got the station on the air and put Santa Claus on the air, and I can't tell the story that fast. Fred, you're running through time.
And Jack, what did you do in those early days?
Well, Fred, I started out as a page boy. In fact, 35 years ago tonight, I was a first page boy when we first went on the air. With a little uniform and 150 pounds taking people around the station. Now I'm getting paid a little more, but I still take people around the station, but it's a different station.
Jack, thank you.
It's awfully nice to be with you all.
Good
Thanks
to
very
have
much.
you here, both of you, really. And good to have you in our city.
Congratulations.
Happy 70.
Jack,
yes,
Jack Moffat, Betty Cope. Here's another guy who remembers something about our old place.
What was I doing in 1947? I had I had just graduated from high school, and I was about to go to college, and I got my very first job in a radio station as a mailroom boy, and they used to let me do the FM weather forecast to a couple of farmers and lost geese in central New York. Nobody was listening, but that means that we sort of share an anniversary. I have been working in the broadcasting business for 35 years, and TV5 has been at it for 35 years. So mutually, congratulations to you. I'm happy to join in a happy anniversary celebration to TV5.
Coming up next, Ted Koppel, Bill Butel, Dorothy Fulheim, and the Eyewitness News team.
Pat Menarson and Joe Rose have joined us here. And look, Pat, I've got a copy of The Plain Dealer. Look at that. December 17th, 1947.
That's when we went on the air.
Yep, that was the day.
Back then, people got most of their news from newspapers, but since then, of course, televisions are the place of its own in journalism.
And Scripps Howard, of course, was a newspaper outfit.
That's right.
They were, I guess, one of the most important of the newspaper operators. And you got your start. You were a print guy.
I started in the Associated Press.
Yeah.
Started in the Associated Press. Moved to television about a year ago. There are some similarities between them. Both do try very, very hard to convey needed information as succinctly as possible, as quickly as possible.
I don't know how many television stories we've covered over the years, how many stories, but it would be hard.
I'm here to tell you we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
As with any other American city, they've been stories of triumph and tragedy, of great achievement and disappointing failures.
In TV5's 35 years on the air, Cleveland has borne witness to the personal achievements of men like Frank Lausche. He was the mayor when TV5 went on the air. He later served 2 terms as governor. The city's also borne witness to what was, in the 60s, the failure of blacks and whites to live in harmony. Huff, 1966. The police try to make routine arrests, but tensions, long bottled, explode, and a devastating riot follows. It fell to Carl Stokes, the first black elected mayor of a major American city, to rebuild Cleveland's image and finances. Just when many thought he was succeeding, came the Glenville riots. Soon afterward, Stokes fell from the city's favor. Ralph Perk entered office promising an end to racial violence, but he busied himself instead with a massive reconstruction of Hopkins Airport. Neighborhood differences still persisted when he passed the torch to Dennis Kucinich. As for Kucinich, it was almost as if his middle name was Trouble. The city lurched from one crisis to another, none greater than that December day in 1976 when a penniless Cleveland slid into default. Most believe that Cleveland's on the rebound now, and that much of the credit belongs to this man, incumbent Mayor George Voinovich. Even his critics acknowledge, albeit grudgingly sometimes, that in his low-key way, Voinovich has been largely responsible for the start of a downtown renaissance. Over the years, Cleveland has served as backdrop for a number of important national events. There was the Carter-Reagan debate in 1980, the first between presidential candidates since the now famous series of face-offs between Richard Nixon and John Kennedy 20 years before. There wasn't any clear winner to the Carter-Reagan debate, although Reagan, of course, won the election. Over the years, Cleveland has also been an important rallying point for the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. visited here often to speak of his dreams. 1979, court-ordered busing begins in Cleveland. It comes off with hardly a hitch. Maybe, just maybe, in some measure because of what happened one day a month before on the Detroit Superior Bridge. East and West Siders met in the middle of the bridge that day, solemnly shook hands, pledged themselves to nonviolence, no matter their views on busing, and prayed. But Cleveland has felt the backwash of war in the 35 years that we've been on the air, war on other shores. First, there was Korea. Many of Northern Ohio's best and brightest fought there. Some died, others were taken prisoner. Dorothy Fulheim went to nationalist China in the mid-50s after Korea to interview, among others, 2 Americans who said they'd been brainwashed by the communists. That was but one of many trips for the grande dame of Cleveland broadcasting. She's gone to almost every corner of the globe. The 60s brought with them the backwash from another ravaged place, a place called Vietnam. Nowhere was the division sharper or more painfully drawn than on the campus of Kent State University. Nowhere was the division sharper or more painfully drawn than on the campus of Kent State University, where, on a spring day in 1970, yet another protest was held. The difference this time, National Guardsmen with weapons loaded. Tempers flare, shots are fired, 4 students are killed. During that period, TV5 sent reporter Roger Sims and the late photographer Jeff Lentz to Vietnam to interview servicemen from Greater Cleveland. All the while, Cleveland and Ohio were playing a vital role in the building of the future. John Glenn awed us all in 1962 when he became the first American to orbit the Earth aboard Friendship 7. Another Ohioan, Neil Armstrong, was the first man on the moon. On a far smaller scale, a Clevelander named Bob Manry set out on another odyssey, crossing the Atlantic in a 13-foot boat. We here at TV5 tracked his trip, too. Some of the other bits of history you've witnessed through the years and dies of TV5, the story of Dr. Sam Shepard of Bay Village, accused of murdering his wife in 1954. The dreadful winter of 1977 and 78. The snow seemed to swallow everything. In city and suburb, life slowed to a crawl. And then there was the decline and fall first of the Cleveland News, then of the Cleveland Press, the last a blow from which the city still hasn't recovered. Change. That's what we've chronicled over the years. This was Cleveland's skyline 35 years ago. Nothing about this city has changed more. Most recently, the old Cuyahoga and Williamson buildings fell, the past making way for the future. The future on this corner to be the new Ohio Center, as striking a symbol of the city's tomorrows as any you might imagine. Change. There will be more. We'll be here to tell you about it as it occurs and to recall it again, we hope, 35 years from now.
That's good, Pat. You jogged a lot of memories with that.
we only skimmed the surface, too, Fred. Those just a few of the stories that TV5 has covered over the years.
You know, those were some of the serious stories. There were also a lot of lighter stories that we've tried to look back at with you along the way.
Eyewitness newsreel has covered a lot of them over the years, haven't we? More than 7,000 of them, as a matter of fact. And the Eyewitness newsreel even has a little bit of touch of class because it's an Emmy Award winner.
That's right. Newsreel, you know, provided laughs over the years, but those have been by design. Chuckles by our own mistakes, however, are under no control of our own, as you might see.
You believe it.
Is selling your prized gold and silver possessions? Well, before you accept any offers, you might want to listen to a 3-part report. Marge Banks begins tonight.
I think that's pretty good advice. You don't have to stop using them entirely. Just use them, not use them, just not use them all the time.
It's amazing how the Browns have recaptured the sports fans of this area. It's a good disappearing act.
One year I'll vote Republican, the next year I'll vote Democrat. I'm, what is it, not bisexual, but what is it?
I don't think that's the word you wanted.
So let's check our satellite, first of all, and find out what has been happening. And, well, there's a strange picture, and all kinds of strange pictures.
Leisure suits.
Leisure suits.
Leisure suits. I can't even say it. How can I read the story?
Oh, moments like that, as when they happen, you drive home and think, oh my, did that really happen? But they do.
We have a lot of fun, but, you know, we take a little bit of our work seriously, like, we'll take a look at 35 years of TV newscasters.
All right.
How's that, huh?
The list of people who covered the news for TV5 is about as long as Euclid Avenue itself. Back in the beginning, doing the news was no big deal. The staff announcer usually read the headlines. But as television grew and the technology improved, so did our news coverage. The nightly news became a fixture in the program schedule. And, of course, Dorothy Fuldheim was there, too, or just as she is now. A lot of people sat in that anchor chair over the years. John B. Hughes, Joel Daly. Ron Penfound, known as Captain Penny later. His co-anchor was Paul Wilcox, who now hosts TV5's Polka Varieties. Jack Perkins was our news director in the 50s. He later went on to stardom at NBC. And here's Tom Field, and Dave Buckle, and Fred DeBrine, all mainstays of the 60s. And here's another Fred, Fred Griffith, who, believe it or not, also used to be the news director. After that, he went on to host some obscure talk show. Never heard from him again. And then in 1969, a young man with bushy sideburns and a furrowed brow came to TV5, John Hambrick. Shortly afterward, TV5 Eyewitness News was born, launching one of the most successful local news programs in America. The torch was passed in 1975 to Dave Patterson and a guy who's still here today, Ted Henry. 35 years after that 5-minute newscast, TV5 airs more than 2.5 hours of news every day with state-of-the-art technology and a staff of dedicated professionals. That already long list growing nearly every day.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at sports over the years and Dorothy Fulltime.
In Cleveland sports, especially some exciting championships.
Thank you. I've been here 16 years with Channel 5, and few as exciting as 1948.
This is Red Barber and Van Patrick broadcasting live. TV5 taught the world about sports coverage back then by televising the first World Series. And the flamboyant Bill Veeck, the Indians owner and master promoter, began his own show here. A 35-year synopsis for Cleveland sports has to start with the Cleveland Indians at the top of the baseball world as world champions in 1948, led by Lou Boudreau, Bob Feller, Bob Lemon, Joe Gordon, Larry Doby, and Gene Bearden. Their last glory year was 1954, when they were toppled in 4 straight World Series games by the New York Giants. They never recovered. The Cleveland Browns won the championship in their 4 years in the All-America Conference, and the orange and brown tidal wave continued in the NFL with world championships in 1950, 54, and 64. The heroes were Hall of Famers Otto Graham, Marion Motley, Bill Willis, Lenny Ford, Jim Brown, Dante Lavelli, Lou Groza, and their founder and coach Paul Brown. His world collapsed in January of 1963 when he was fired. NBA basketball came to Cleveland when the Cavaliers were formed in 1970. The miracle of Richfield was the high point under owner Nick Milletti and coach Bill Fitch. They eliminated Washington in the first round of the playoffs and broke NBA attendance records only to lose to the Boston Celtics. They too never came back. The Cavaliers played in their new home, the 21,000-seat Coliseum, starting in 1974. It was another dream of Nick Milletti, who vowed to leave his footprints in the sand. Hockey had its love affair with Cleveland as the old Barons in the American Hockey League. Home was the Cleveland Arena, Euclid and East 36th Street. Fred Glover was the star of the 50s and 60s. The Crusaders had a short life in the World Hockey Association, itself only a promoter's passing fancy. Then came 2 years as the Barons again were in the National Hockey League. Now hockey is only another Cleveland memory.
Well, at least sports history is fun.
That's right. Thank you for doing that for us. It's nice to look back once again. We are talking about going back. We're going to go back right now to Fred Griffith.
And we're going to introduce you to the one and only. May I have a kit?
She's what you've been waiting for.
Dorothy, you've changed since I saw you a little bit ago. How fabulous.
I have a new dress on.
It's just for this special occasion.
The most expensive I've ever worn.
Dorothy, what did you wear when you first did your first program on WEWS? Can you remember?
Oh, heavens, no. The first time Mr. Henry saw me, had a great big hat, and I was carrying a parasol. That's why he gave me the job.
Well, did he look at your educational and academic and journalistic credentials at that time, or he just liked the hat?
He just liked the hat.
Well, would you say it was just kind of just luck?
Well, no, not really. I had attacked the president because the Brotherhood of Trainmen had a strike, and he was using the Army, and I objected to Truman doing it. And so the trainman asked me to do a network editorial, and he had heard it, and that was why.
And that was carried on the full network.
Yes.
And so Mr. Hanrahan rang you up. You were in the phone book in those times.
I don't really know how it happened, but I went in there determined to charm him. Took me about 5 minutes. Usually it does about 3 minutes. But, you know.
But he was tough, huh? He was a stern Irishman, right?
He was a very original guy.
Yes.
I had some extraordinary experiences with him.
And the things that you did in those days on this station were the first that they were done any place. days on this station were the first that they were done any place.
Well, this was the first station between New York and Chicago, and I was the first woman who ever did news. You know, my husband once told me that he was in a bar. That's before I was married to him, and I came on, and the guy said, "Take her off. Who wants to hear a damn woman doing the news?" We had a break tradition.
Yes, and it's been a pioneering change too.
Oh yes, it's altogether different. Now, of course, I had some extraordinary experiences. You know, when I went to cover the war in '67, they wanted a man to go with me, Al Rosen did, and I saw a magnificent-looking Israeli soldier, and I said, "I want him. Buy him for me. I don't care what he costs."
You didn't get him though, but you got a lot while you were there. Dorothy, thank you for these few minutes. We'll take a quick break. And we'll be back. We're going to take a look at some of the other faces that have been on this screen over the past 35 years.
They'll all be on. Alice takes a green one.
Can I get up now?
That I used to cry all the way to.
1947. Television may have just been beginning in Cleveland with WEWS. For me, in London in those days, there was no such thing as television. Radio was the thing, the BBC in particular, and one 15-minute program that my parents let me listen to every night, Dick Barton's Special Agent, with his faithful companions, Snowy and Jock. There were two other people I remember hearing in those days, Alistair Cook and Edward R. Murrow. My father listened to them faithfully, and so I would listen along with him, and they gave me my first sense of what it was I wanted to do in this life, to become a journalist, and most especially to become a broadcast journalist. How have things changed over the years? Well, I guess the biggest change for me is that I'm now on this side of the Atlantic, broadcasting sometimes back in the other direction, but still doing what Ed Murrow was doing those 35 years ago, and that is trying to make the world a somewhat smaller place and to bring some understanding about one side of the Atlantic to the other side of the Atlantic. I thought it was a great job back then. I still do.
Next, relive the days of Upbeat, the 1 O'Clock Club, plus Marvin Hamlish, Merv Griffin, and Phil Donahue.
I hadn't even seen television in 1947. I didn't see it till the following year when they brought a little pilot television set to my dressing room at the Riverside Theater in Milwaukee. And about 50 of us stood around and stared at a little tiny Milton Berle. We've come a long way in those 35 years, and I congratulate Channel 5 on wonderful shows and creative broadcasting. This is the year, 35 years. The birthstone is either coral or jade. So if you folks out there have any class, you'll send all of your coral and jade to Channel 5 here in Cleveland. Congratulations, and many more years of excellent broadcasting.
There are so many people who wanted to be here today to say happy 35th, anniversary. And there was Beethoven. There was Mozart. There was Chopin. Yes, but they couldn't make it, let's face it. They're doing another show at another network. But anyway, to all of you, from all of us composers, happy 35th anniversary to you. Happy 35th anniversary to you. And I just hope it, on my big birthday, I hope you'll all be out there making promos and stuff for me too. Best of luck. Bye.
Just about everybody who is anybody at one time or another has sat across a microphone from a TV5 interviewer. Let's look at some of those faces from the past.
Remember that bank that I used to cry all the way to? I bought it.
Dear old golden rule day.
Love to be with you on the morning extra.
People do listen when I sing.
I put it on your tummy?
Why not?
Okay. Thank Excuse me. Played hooker in it. I love that, and I got to die.
I got caught spitting on the alligator.
Hit the big 4-0
hit
here
the
lately.
big 4-0, gang.
Was that a little sauce coming up for Jeff, in other words? I think yes.
My name, Jose Jimenez. You must lose the weight in your head
before losing the weight in your body.
But every time Marie performed, I left the room. It was bad.
Okay. Somebody asked me the other day that I want to go down in history known as a beer can. I said, that's fine.
We get together every Wednesday afternoon, and we decide how we're going to carve up the rest of the country.
I think it's terribly important for this nation to understand.
I'm a longtime fan of Vegas. Are you talking to me now?
Yeah, you're talking to me.
I had been asked as far back as 20 years ago when Simon & Schuster said to me, you really should write a book about your life. I said, let me live one, and then I'll write about it.
Well, he's doing more now in the way of looking down and humming and hawing. And, you know, the great thing about doing Ronald Reagan is if you don't have an answer, you're doing a perfect Ronald Reagan.
Well, the only way I get on the tube now is when I'm on the news. And for Pete's sake, they don't even pay me for it. Well, good luck. And who knows? You know, maybe when TV5 is in its 70s, it will be running the country. Yes.
You know, a lot of people who have appeared on Cleveland television throughout the years left town, but so many others are still with us. And we have 3 such people with us right now. Alice Weston is here, Norm Wayne is here, Bill Gordon, and they all appeared at one time or another on TV5. And I was kind of surprised to learn that a couple of these people were with us on TV5. Alice is with WUAB, channel 43 right now. And back in the old days, what year was it? 48, 49?
On Valentine's Day in 1948.
What did you do on channel 5?
All I was allowed to do was cook. They wouldn't let women on for anything else.
Oh, my gosh.
And I threw cookies to the cameraman, and it was a good idea because Jack Moffat was a cameraman, and he became my boss.
And Jack, of course, is general manager of Channel 43 now. You threw him good cookies, Alice. It was
right. I got rich, too.
Can I ask you, how much money did you make when you worked at Channel 5?
Well, I did 2 half hours, and they paid me $75. And then we had so many clients that they asked me to do another half hour, and they paid me 25 cents for each show. And in those days, we didn't have teleprompter, no copy. You had to know the product and ad lib. So I made $1.25 on the 3rd half hour.
Boy, you must have become wealthy after all that. We got, I think, were there a couple of pictures that we were able to show of the old days? It must have been fun days for you.
We had a ball.
Oh, of course. Norm Wayne, I did not know that you were a talent on Channel 5.
That was the best kept secret.
Yeah. And you did like a dance show.
Right, the Friedman Buick Dance Party, Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock. Lots of fun. We did it for almost 2 years.
You must have some great memories.
Well, the thing I remember most about the show was that in those days there was no tape. It was black and white.
That's right.
And nobody paid for rehearsal time.
Yeah.
So we sort of ad-libbed an hour of live television. It was chaos every Saturday morning.
And you did it or you didn't, and that's all there was to it.
We had a lot of fun. They drove the cars right in the studio. And
right.
I used to run back and forth while the show was on and just make it up as we went along.
Marvelous. Bill Gordon, of course, did the 1 o'clock club. And Bill, you're still doing things with Viacom now. And you're doing the Bill Gordon Beechwood show. You're doing the Bill Gordon on the Scene, right?
Yes.
But back in the old days, you did the 1 o'clock club with Dorothy Fullheim.
I remember that.
Oh, I bet you do.
Is this academic challenge?
No, I'm not challenging.
I know the answer. All right, you know, I can barely hear you with all the pandemonium here in the lobby of the hotel. But there's a picture. The one on the left is me, and the other one is Dorothy Fullheim. And we had a show that, boy, I'll tell you, that show was a winner. That show paid for a lot of the stuff that you guys are using down there now. I want you to know
the bills,
that.
Right? Yeah.
You're not kidding.
It was really a forerunner of a lot of the other shows to come, wasn't it?
It wasn't that, Don, at all. The other shows like Mike Douglas and so forth simply copied every single thing we did. And it doesn't bother me that they took that show.
You ought to be glad
it doesn't really bother me at all.
That we,
and it doesn't know.
Or are you having a heart attack?
I'm not. I'm just a little bit upset.
Thank you very much.
Bugs me. That's
you know, I had a great time at TV5 and being a part of a lot of the shows that came along. And I think that what we'll do now is take a look at some of the old ones, and we'll start with the 1 o'clock club.
Yes. Let's...
His son was telling me in the book, he describes his wife as 1/3 Italian, 1/3 Irish, and 1/3 lie detector. Do you remember that in the book?
It's true. Then there was the Gene Carroll Show, where tomorrow's stars could... Then there was the Gene Carroll Show, where tomorrow's stars could break into TV.
Let your kisses thrill me, just like you alone can do.
And of course, polka varieties.
Come on and join the fun on Polka Varieties. 60 minutes of relaxation and entertainment featuring America's top polka bands and entertainers. It's time for Upbeat, 1 full hour of contemporary music, dancing, surprises, and fun.
And this is where it all started for me. We had some big names on this show.
Did you have a puppet that always followed you around? You can treat me the way you used to treat that puppy, baby. I swear I'll never put you down. Never put you.
Those were wonderful special effects, weren't they?
Wow, those were something else.
Hasn't it?
And then there was the morning exchange, and you and he were charter members along with Alan Douglas, who went right away to, after a few months, to New York City to continue his radio career.
Yeah, I think if he had ever known what would have happened to the morning exchange, he would have stood, you know?
Well, we've been on the air for 11 years. I wonder if we'll make it to 35.
Well, I hope so.
If we do, though, there'll be lots more bloopers to show.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we've had more than our share. Let's take a look back at some of the faux pas we've made.
Memorial Day traditionally brings drivers out on the road in record numbers, and that can mean a record number of accidents. The death toll seems to be down, though, this year, along with the traffic. High gas prices seem to be keeping people at home. I don't know who that driver was. Must have been somebody from management working on the holiday.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Okay,
Okay, all
Shabby.
you have to do is put this hoop in front of him now.
All right, sit and stay.
tell him to jump.
Okay.
Okay? Now, Shabby.
Sit and stay.
Shabby. Shabby, jump.
Shabby.
Now you...
That's really something. We just keep trying around here.
The camera just froze.
So what happened? Shabby?
Shabby, jump now.
Shabby jump.
What
happened? What's the matter with you?
Somebody's taking
He
my shoe.
took my shoe right off.
Really an endangered species. I always have to ask that.
You can see why now. Shabby, jump.
Shabby.
Now you
Come on,
shouldn't do
come
that.
on, honey pup.
Yeah, it's Monday,
I like
February 15th,
I like
and
that.
the skies are cloudy as usual in Cleveland. And
Good. Is this the nature films, Bob? Where is he?
wait a minute,
There he
though. This says Sex World from 0
That's
to
SeaWorld,
904,
isn't it?
and from 904 on is Taboo, and two.
No.
He brought you two tapes. This one,
No.
Debbie Does Dallas and Pizza Girls. Is this Hot and Saucy Pizza Girls?
This is
Hot and Saucy
No.
Pizza Girls?
No, this is a misprint. This is SeaWorld and Shamu, it says.
What fun. Oh, Joel. I remember those tapes.
You remember those movies?
And you remember, it wasn't that long ago at all that you and I shared an hour every day. It was called the Afternoon Exchange. It wasn't that long ago at all. And
4 years and 8 months, we had fun.
4 years and 8 months, we had fun. We had lots of great people to meet and lots of times to share with all the people at home. But times have changed.
You had a lot of fun with it, and what we've done now with Live on 5 is taken the Afternoon Exchange, just changed it around a little bit more, added some new ingredients, and Wilma and I are having a marvelous time. And we're having fun with it, right?
We really are.
Well, it's been a very important 35 years for all of us and for the town, too, I think. And, you know, another Cleveland native is following us every morning at 10 o'clock, and that's Phil Donahue. Let's listen to what he has to say about our anniversary.
In 1947, I was 11 years old. And like all of you, I remember the first people on my block to get a television set. I remember thinking they must be wealthy, very wealthy. The first TV set I saw, a round screen. Boy, was that classy. And the first television picture I remember, the Scripps Howard logo, the animated lighthouse with the beacon sweeping across the screen, and Court Stanton saying, "This is WEWS Channel 5, first in Cleveland." For a long time, I prayed that I would someday become a television announcer. Then my voice changed, but unfortunately it didn't change enough, certainly not as rich as Mr. Stanton's. So now to be on Channel 5 with my own show is a big personal kick for me. I hope you'll accept my best wishes to everybody at TV5 for a very happy 35th anniversary.
Anybody who can last at anything for 35 years is to be condemned. I mean, congratulated. So let's all get in the spirit. Happy 35th.
That's entertainment. Stay tuned for more as TV5 celebrates its 35th year. Plus a little romance will do it wrong.
You know, as a matter of fact, we've been here for 35 years, but television started a lot before that.
As a matter of fact, the whole idea of television was conceived back in the 1800s. Things have progressed, as you know, but why don't we take a look back and see how everything has evolved.
35 years ago, when TV was just starting, nobody really ever thought it would be a success. In fact, a lot of people predicted that one of these days, TV5 would just be a giant parking lot. Well, you know something? It is. Yes, this is the original site of TV5, here on East 13th Street, between Euclid Avenue and Chester Avenue, now a parking lot. But when the original TV5 building was here, a lot of hours of live programs came from this spot. And boy, things have sure changed in the last 35 years. And boy, things have sure changed in the last 35 years. Of course, television goes back much farther than that. It was in 1882 that French artist Albert Robida made these prophetic sketches of a home picture system that could do everything, from entertain to teach. And then just 2 years after that, inventor Paul Nipkow started developing a spinning disc system, which would mechanically break an image down into impulses and then reproduce it the same way. Well, this system eventually proved to be bulky and rather poor quality. But you know, that idea would not be totally abandoned until the early 1950s. It was really these two serious-looking fellows, Vladimir Zworykin and Philo T. Farnsworth, who perfected the all-electronic system, which is basically the same thing we use today. Experimentation with this new toy continued through the 1920s and the early 30s, but by the late 1930s, TV was almost ready for the public. In fact, several studios were set up. And in 1939, at the New York World's Fair, broadcast television made its debut. Franklin Delano Roosevelt starred in that early transmission, being the first U.S. president to appear on TV. Well, at last, it was ready for the public. Only problem was, the public had something a little more important to do, like a war. All television development was halted then until 1946, when TV fever really broke out. First sets started coming off the assembly lines and finding their ways into the corner bar and the homes. And of course, it was on this day in 1947 that TV5 signed on the air. Oh, those old bulky Dumont cameras and those banks and banks of hot lights finally evolved into what we have today, these handheld color cameras and the small lights, which are getting better and even more compact every day. This whole big room out at our transmitter site once was filled with just the transmitter itself. Well, now these three cabinets house the entire transmitter, which someday will probably be reduced right down to the size of a loaf of bread, maybe even smaller than that. Just about everything that was done mechanically in those old days is now or soon will be accomplished by little electronic chips and the computers. What you're looking at right now, out here at our transmitter site in Parma, is the latest thing in the whole world, really. Giant satellite uplinking facility that enables us to send our picture 22,000 miles out there into space to a tiny Earth satellite, and 22,000 miles back down again to some point in the globe most anywhere. Nobody else in Cleveland has anything like this except TV5. That's one of the reasons we've been first in Cleveland all these years. And 35 years from now on our 70th anniversary program, who knows what we'll see? Maybe we'll be up there sitting on that satellite ourselves.
That's true. You never know.
That's right. Thanks, Joel. Before we forget it, I want to thank Stovers. That's where we are. You can see that. An American Commodore tuxedo and the Florist Association of Cleveland.
We also would like to thank our crew. They have put in a lot of work and a lot of hours in getting all of this together. Our producers, thanks to all of them. If not for them right there, we wouldn't be on right now.
And thanks to all of our alums who came here. And we'll come back in just a minute and introduce you to the governor-elect and to our general manager.
Special guests have joined us right now. As you can see, Governor-elect Richard Celeste and our very own general manager, Ed Cervenak, and hello to both of you. First of all, Governor-elect, as we might say here, what are your first recollections of television?
The World Series.
Is that right?
Really, you know, that was it. Absolutely. I mean, to see the real thing right there on a television set, which my father's best friend said was so small it was like looking through a keyhole.
We used to have little magnifying screens, actually, that went over them, so the little screens you had at home might seem visible.
Well, but, you know, the seats I was used to in the ballpark, actually, even the small television brought me closer to the game.
Certainly did.
It was terrific. That's my first recollection, and it's still an exciting medium.
Did you drink Bosco, by the way?
That's right, Bosco.
Did you drink Bosco?
Yes. Now, and Ed is our general manager now, but everything doesn't happen easily, as you know. You pay your dues, and your first job in television, Ed, was what?
Engineer.
An engineer.
Engineer. And I must say, when he said he watched the World Series,
yes,
I was down at the stadium working on the World Series.
Were you really?
Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a good time, Ed.
Thought the world had to do it.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun to do.
Eddie, in 30 seconds, and that's the language of our trade, tell us what's going to happen in the future in our business.
Well, I think the most important thing that will happen with us is that we'll be doing more and more local programming. And we'll also bring in satellite feeds from across the nation to inform our viewers.
All right.
I think we have something
it's an exciting future
to sip on here.
Something to sip on?
Let's take a look at that. Can we have some
of that? It's coming our way
right
now.
Oh.
I don't think they want to give it to us.
We're going to have a little sip of champagne. This is the 35th anniversary.
I think they were enjoying it themselves, frankly.
And thanks to the Broadway Babies for a very special anniversary song for TV5.
And a Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, holiday greetings.
On December 17, a TV station hit the screen here in Cleveland. With 300 TV sets, Scripps and Howard placed their bets here in Cleveland. Now it's time to celebrate. Since 47, you've been great in our community. So we're wishing you the best.